In general, what are other procedures and requirements for applying for an American college?
Well, that's a complicated question, Kara. I do both UK and US admissions, and wow, US is so much more complicated. If my US clients want to also apply to UK, I don't even change the price because the US process involves like 50 essays, and it's just absolutely, you need a couple years to really get it right. So the first thing, and Leah's going to chime in on this too, but it's those standardized tests. Yeah. The truth is, if you want to go to the Ivy Plus these days, this year the acceptance rate at Harvard was 3.3%, Columbia was 3.7%, Princeton was 3.98%, and Yale was 4.68%, MIT was 4.3%. When it's like that, you're dealing with an applicant pool that is exceptional. And there are going to be so many other students with a 1570 or a 1580 just like you. And you need to get that in place early, because if you're applying as what we call an unhooked applicant, that means you're not a legacy, your parents didn't go there, and you're not recruited for the football team or the soccer or something, then you must really be in the top 25% SAT to have a solid chance. Now, it doesn't mean you're right, a lower score, it's holistic, it's possible. I've seen lots of lower scores get surprising results, but you need to start that early. And Leo's also going to talk more about the process for this. But I've been a test prep instructor and content writer myself for many, many years. I'm actually kind of obsessed with it, even though I'm a counselor, because these tests are often the easiest way to really improve somebody's chances. So start early, because the SAT is a preppable test, or ACT. If you put in the prep, if you learn the content, as we're going to talk about more, and you learn it the right way, like with the course we have here or other resources you can even find online, you will get a high score if you practice enough in most cases. So that's number one. Then the next big thing is really the college list. So we need to develop a college list, and most high schools will limit you at 10 choices. So if you're doing US only, we have 10 choices. One of those is the UC system, and that's up to 9 schools. So you can apply to all 9 UCs, it counts as one application. Then you have 9 more. So you really want to make a list. If you're targeting the Ivy Plus, you want to make a list that's pretty aggressive. I mean, if you have the academics for it, and you probably want to take 4 or 5 of your choices, in that reach Ivy Plus range, and then maybe save for safeties and sort of target type schools. Then there's the essays. So once we have the school list locked in, the biggest part of all, and where I spend by far the most time with my clients, is essays. My students must write their own essays, but I help them with every draft. It's a process of learning how to be a great writer. And most of my students will have at least 10 drafts of virtually every essay, except for very minor ones. So what happens is, let's say you apply to Penn and you apply to Yale. Each one of these schools is going to have their own set of supplementary essays. It could be 3, 4, 5, 6. If it's Chicago, it's going to be like 7 or 8, and they're going to be bizarre. And I mean, you must work on these like they are masterpieces of art. That is the biggest way, if you're an unhooked applicant, to stand out. If you could tell that compelling narrative in a human way, that makes the biggest difference at these Ivy Plus schools. If you have the academic chops, so the SAT and the grades, the IB predicteds or the GPA are good, then pretty much outside the top 25, you're going to be a very strong candidate. It's not guaranteed, but you'll be a very strong candidate. But if it's going for those Ivy Plus range schools, top 25, essays are going to be something you need to plan to spend at least 150 hours on. I mean, it is a year-long project.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the fact is that for students or parents who have actually gone through this process, going to school in the US is definitely a chore. This is not something they just walk around the park, right? The good news for me though is that for test prep, it's actually really straightforward. Like Collin says, that's really the first thing you got to think about. And it's so easy to prep. As long as you put some effort in it, anybody can do it. The rest is where you have people like Collins who can help you, guide you through the process. It is like a maze. I have done it myself, and I've seen a lot of students doing it. It is a very, very hard process, but that's why we have these people who can help them.
And these people.
We do it.
But I just want to chime in again. Boy, if you put in the time, you will get the high score on SAT, ACT.
That is true.
It is not some fixed result.